Okay, Mayor Ruiz, talk a little bit. Can you explain what happened here tonight?
Well, basically, I put the item on the agenda to have council decide whether or not they wanted to call investigation into the fact that Mr. Cox selected streets where he had property and had them paved. And so ultimately the decision was to go ahead and continue with the investigation with the final vote of 3-1, with of course Mr. Cox abstaining.
During that discussion, you actually encouraged Mr. Cox to abstain because he was going to vote. Why'd you do that?
Well, I mean, he wanted to go ahead and vote. And the main reason why we're here is because he didn't disclose the fact that he was going to put a street where he had property, and number two, he didn't abstain from that vote originally. So we're having this discussion about whether or not we're going to go ahead and investigate for this issue, and he wants to go ahead and vote. I mean, that's just a no-brainer that he should have gone ahead and abstained from that, because he couldn't, I mean, in my opinion, he shouldn't have voted, and he didn't, he abstained.
So I think he took a lot of people by surprise this evening when you guys came back from executive session and he made an offer to resign, citing his health reasons. Then that changed into what appeared to be an offer to council that he would resign in exchange for dropping the investigation. Can you elaborate on that situation?
Well, once we came into, again, the public, he went ahead and told us, if you drop this investigation, I will go ahead and resign. And he said, this is my offer. And I told him, Mr. Cox, this isn't quid pro quo. You don't do something and we do something else. This is an independent decision. Alone, aside from what you decide whether to resign or not, we still have to make a decision on whether or not to call the investigation. To my opinion, that wasn't right. You shouldn't say, I'm going to give you this if you do that. No, that's not what we're about here. And I am glad the council said we will continue with this investigation. If he wants to stay on council, if he wants to resign in a future time, that is his decision. But I am glad that council did not take up on the offer and continue with the investigation.
What do you say to the critics that will say, this is personal, this was an endeavor to get rid of him?
Well, I don't think that it was personal in any way, shape, or form. This happened in 2014. Back then, we allocated $100,000 for each council member to put streets to go ahead and be paved. Like I said, Mr. Cox knew that the streets that he was selecting had his property on them. He didn't disclose it to any member of council. He said that he disclosed it to our former city manager and our former public works director, none of which vote on the final decision. We should have known about this. And number two, he should have gone ahead and abstained from that vote, which again, he didn't. So when we found out about this, we have to call an investigation. It could have happened to any member of council. It just so happens that he did not disclose and he did not abstain from this.
Okay, so my final question is about voting. Under Socorro City Council rules, you don't typically get to vote. So had you had the opportunity to vote today, how would you have voted?
Well, I was the one that went ahead and called the special meeting to put this item on the agenda to go ahead and call for the investigation. So if there had been a tie, which is the only way that I can go ahead and vote, I would have voted yes. Because again, I believe that we have to find out exactly what happened. This is not the first time that we have called an investigation to current or former members of council. And we should go ahead and do this to make sure that we know what happened. And so the people of Socorro know that this happened. We shouldn't have just gone ahead and tossed it to the side and said, it never happened. We're not that Socorro anymore.
And just to clarify, because it was a little confusing at the end, the investigation will go forward and Councilman Cox has rescinded his resignation, or is he resigned?
Well, I don't think that he ever formally resigned. Like I said, he made an offer to council, said, I'll resign if you guys drop the investigation. Since council went ahead and approved the investigation, he said, I'm not resigning anymore. Which again, to me, it shouldn't have together. If he wants to resign at any point in time, just like any other council member, he has the right to call their own investigation, which they did.
All right.